Ready or not? Here we go. Huh?
Live.
All right. I believe we are live. We apologize for the delay in kicking this thing off. It has been a furious battle here behind the scenes. And I am waiting to, I guess, get verification. I'm going to have my phone out here checking for us to go live. If you can hear us, let us know in the comments, and we'll, as soon as we start seeing some of those comments pop back over, we'll continue on. So this is on the Outdoor Battles official channel, correct? Are you showing us live?
I'm not seeing it as public. Is it an unlisted link? Do you know?
It's live. I wouldn't worry about it.
I can't find it. Like I can't get it on the phone or.
Me either.
Everybody's commenting that they're seeing it.
Well, we probably need to see the comments.
How do we get to the comments?
So
I'll go make it a public link. That's what it is.
All right, we're just trying to get to the comments here at the same time.
And we are really excited to have Erin on from Backcountry Foodie. So we appreciate her hanging in there with us as we sorted all this stuff out as well. How are you doing today, Erin?
I'm good, thanks. Glad to be back. Can't remember last time. It's probably been well over a year since the last time we chatted.
Yeah, we've kind of tried new things every time. And last year we didn't have as many guests. We put most of our focus into building out the course and some of that stuff. Now we're bringing back our favorite guests. So.
Yeah, which you were definitely a crowd favorite when you came on, and it goes to show because we did ask everyone to submit questions, and we got a pile of questions. So we're not going to waste anyone's time.
Yeah, a lot of really good questions too. I have them in front of me.
Yeah, in order to get through these questions, we're gonna have to be on point. So just really quick, some housekeeping items. Man, everyone is very, very active in the closed Facebook group. It's awesome to see. If you are not a part of that, highly suggest you go over there and at least pop in once a week and see what's going on. And obviously we make announcements and things over there as well. But really cool just to see the progress people are already making, how hyped up everyone's getting. And I mean, people are just well on their way in their training at this point. So lots and lots of fun. We'll try to continue to be active over there. I know I've been out of that group for a couple of weeks just with back-to-back travel, but I'm going to be getting in there over the next couple of days and trying to answer any questions as well. But let's just jump right into introductions of Erin and
Our giveaway.
And just so you know, we will be doing a giveaway on a Shadowlight backpack if you stay till the end of this broadcast, this live stream. So if you want to win a Shadowlight, make sure to stay on live until the end of this. So Erin is the founder of Backcountry Foodie, a leading source for ultralight backpacking recipes and a meal planning source. As a registered dietitian and ultralight long distance backpacker, Erin created Backcountry Foodie while preparing homemade lightweight meals for her Pacific Crest Trail through hike attempt in 2017. And you're always hitting the trail. You've continued to hit the Appalachian Trail, Oregon Coast Trail, Colorado Trail, Condor Trail. So you are one of us, but you're also a dietitian, which is kind of a superpower for a combination. And I guess for me personally, I feel like I know a lot about nutrition until I read these questions that you get to answer, not me. And I realize I know nothing about when it comes to any sort of nuances. It's a whole different level when there's any other things thrown into the mix, such as an allergy or a...
That's why I have a job.
Exactly.
I'm here to answer those questions.
Yes, exactly. So, Erin, if you want to add anything in, maybe at the end of the questions, you can tell people more of what you do just on a daily basis with Backcountry Foodie, because I know you offer a few different services over there. And so I'll kind of let you handle explaining that, but really we can just jump into these questions and get going. So I guess I'll go ahead and read the question, and then I'll let you do all of the heavy lifting of answering these. So Tim R asked, With the need to live on a low carb, low sugar diet, how can I best effectively fuel for long distance hikes instead of carb loading? High protein foods can, some of these are a little bit hard to read, so bear with me. This is like the worst. This is like taking me back to like third grade reading in front of a class, and I'm gonna like get everything wrong. But high protein foods can suggest. Are there any high protein foods? Some of these are also written in a certain way where I'm having to add some words. So what can you suggest for high protein meals, essentially, that don't have highly processed foods also?
And actually, this being the first question is probably the most difficult one for me to answer. Because I don't have a whole lot of experience with low carb, well, low sugar, yes, but not necessarily low carb. So I don't know if this person's needing to follow it for diabetes or if they're on a keto diet, like what the reasoning is for it. So that I would rely on your medical provider to kind of get some feedback of like how many carbs you can have if there is something medically going on. Because I hate for you to restrict too much because carbs are very useful when you're hiking. Your diet on the trail is very different from when you're at home, because you're burning through your glycogen stores, which is the carbohydrates stored in your muscles and your liver. So sometimes, even if you're on a low carb at home, some carbs are going to be really beneficial on the trail. But again, not knowing your medical history or why or those kind of things, I can't really give a really good answer for that.
He's chiming in saying keto and diabetes. He's not making this easy on us.
Okay. So yes. So diabetes, I know keto is now a treatment for diabetes, and I don't have a lot of knowledge about that. So I don't have a good explanation for that. Sorry if I'm looking away, I'm reading the question. So the high protein foods, other than your like freeze dried beef, pork, chicken, I'm trying to think, because I'm so plant-based. The reason why I'm so plant-based is that we'll talk about it with a lot of these other questions is it's an ultralight food because plant-based proteins have carbs, protein, and fat in every gram of food. Whereas something like a tuna packet is just protein. It doesn't have fat and it doesn't have carbs. So I'll go into kind of my rationale behind those things later on. But unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for that one. So,
I mean, I'll just chime in terms of just protein. We pack a lot of like meat sticks, cheese, things like that. I can't say if those are high processed or how much carbs they have. I just know that I see people pack just like salami sticks. Some of those meats can last longer than you'd think on trail, and then obviously just like freeze dried or dried, jerky or things like that. But yeah, that's about as much experience as I have in that realm.
Right. And then I don't use a lot of sausage because it's not as calorically dense as some other things. So, but again, I'll have better explanations as we go on because a lot of those questions are going to answer some of that.
Okay.
I think sometimes we tend to forget that you can use things like protein powders to supplement, especially some of those that are like made for higher activity, like not just recovery, but for.
And there's so many of those that perhaps you can find one with low carbohydrate if you
so a lot of them
search
have
long
sugar.
enough.
Yeah, the one that I use is just egg white powder. It's just a protein source because a lot of the protein powders either have a flavoring or lots of sugar to make them taste better. So that's kind of my secret weapon is I throw egg white powder into just about everything because it doesn't have a flavor, it doesn't have a texture, and it doesn't weigh anything. So that would be an option.
That's
if you
a
want to
great
sprinkle
option.
that in.
Yeah, that's a great option. All right, JL, question concerning on-trail snacks. There's a lot of discussion whether snacks eaten on the trail should contain just fat and carbs or if protein should also be a component. And knowing this, what should the ratio of those be to each other? What do you recommend?
And actually, I thought that was interesting. The talk on the trail is just fat and carbs. So I'm kind of curious what the rationale is behind that.
I think that may come from a snippet that's in our OB100 guidebook that says, like, when you're fueling during your high activity, focus on carbs and fat and then use protein for recovery because you don't get as much energy per calorie from protein. So,
However, it's hard to get out. If you wait until recovery time, your body only processes so much protein at a time. So even if you save it all to the end of the day, you're not going to utilize it all. So my trail snacks, actually, I use carbs, protein, and fat just because that way I can sprinkle in all that nutrition all day long. Then that way also you never get a high and a low of energy because you got the protein in there slower, the fat slower energy, then the carbs are higher energy, that kind of thing. So that's what I prefer to do. Ratio, you're talking about recovery, the sweet spot is 3-to-1 or 4-to-1. So 3 grams of carbs to every 1 gram of protein or 4 grams of carbs to every 1 gram of protein is like the sweet spot for recovery. So if you do that like all day long, you're going to be really, really awesome. But it's more really important at the end of the day, especially I'm 48 now. I don't recover like I used to. So I really try to focus on that more as the recovery in the afternoon. That's how I practice, is the way I snack throughout the day.
That's a good rule.
Awesome. Katrina, best advice for someone who is vegan and who has a wheat allergy, cancer survivor with Crohn's. So this has been a game changer for my health. Full remission for 6 years. I make all of my own dehydrated meals, but if you have any words of wisdom, I'd love to hear. And then she was on to explain kind of she's doing some longer 500-mile hikes. So thoughts on that?
So vegan, wheat allergy, and you like to make your own meals. Some of my go-tos for wheat alternatives for pastas, chickpea pasta, edamame pasta, especially if you have a dehydrator at home, pre-cooking those and dehydrating them. They can be cold soaked and cooked in a bag. So you could do a cold pasta salad if you wanted to. I really love chickpea pasta. Similar thing, it's high protein, it has carbs in it, it has fiber, it has all the nutrition in one food. Quinoa is another really go-to, has carbs, protein, and fat in every gram. Vegan for milk powder, and this was another question down the road. Instead of milk powder, I love cashew milk powder. It's really creamy, like whole milk powder, and it also has the fats in it and the proteins in it. Soy milk powder is another one, although there's only one brand out of all the ones out there that I can tolerate. Most of them are really, really sour. So Now brand, just NOW brand, is a really good soy milk powder. It's a really benign flavor, so you can mix it into a bunch of things. But a lot of the others, they don't taste good. So those are some quick ideas for those.
Yeah, those are solid. All right, we got a couple questions on, like, should we take a multivitamin on trail, or what kinds of foods should I pack on a hike that are healthy and also packed with essential vitamins?
And yeah, there's another one about for the multivitamin for a long distance hike and then short distance. We actually have if you want to deep dive into this later, we have a whole blog post about vitamin and mineral deficiencies for thru hikers. So you can really take a deep dive into what those are and what are the ways to manage them. But deficiencies typically take weeks to multiple months. So unless you're going to be out there and really eating poorly for a long time, then you're probably going to be fine. I take a multivitamin just to cover my bases so I don't have to worry about it. So if you're out for a week or two, don't worry about it, because you're going to go home, eat your fruits and veggies and your grains, those things, and replenish yourself. And there's actually a question later on about what are some of the most common ones when you need to resupply in town is like iron. Women can become iron deficient really quickly if we're eating a lot of high processed foods. So that's something to really focus on. If you're making a lot of your homemade foods, what people don't realize is the dehydration process. The exposure to heat actually degrades the B vitamins and vitamin C and the water soluble vitamins. So even if you're trying to eat really well and making your own food, you can't help it, you're losing all those vitamins. So that's where the other reason I like to take a multivitamin, just to cover my bases so I don't have to stress about that kind of thing.
Yeah, I definitely like that. David M., when is the best time to eat your big meal of the day? At home, my big meal is a lunch with a light meal around 5:30 to 6. Not sure if this works on a long hike.
Similar kind of thing that I already alluded to is I prefer to eat consistently throughout the day, because hiking is very different from being at home. At home, I'm sitting here in my chair all day long. I could have a big lunch and then a lighter dinner kind of thing. Versus, and what I was talking about, you can only utilize so much at a time, is for hikers, we're mostly average athletes. Most of us aren't elite athletes that can process like huge amounts of carbs and protein like powerlifters and through triathletes and that kind of thing. So for carbohydrates, it's 1 gram per minute or 60 grams per hour is kind of the maximum that just your average hiker can utilize at once. Protein is 20 to 25 grams per hour. So that's similar to where I was saying you don't need to load up on protein all at one time, because you'll only use that 20 to 25 grams for muscle recovery. The rest is just calories, which is fine as long as you've gotten that protein all throughout the day. So
I want to recap on that. You said 60 grams of carbs and 25 grams of protein is what you can digest an hour?
Well, our average people, yeah. Okay. So if you're more highly trained, you can definitely utilize more. But for the most part, us weekend warriors, our bodies aren't trained to metabolize as much as other people are.
Okay. Yeah, those are some interesting benchmarks. I'm sure they vary, on what you're typically doing or
right. Well, different sports are different. Yeah. So
well, that's something that we found from experience. Like when we're like our perfect 20-mile day that we talk about is us trying to get a good breakfast in, a good lunch in, and then we eat dinner before we get to camp. if we're doing big miles. So
Right.
we eat dinner at 5 or 6 when you're hungry and when you would typically eat, and then we hike after that so that we're not creating a deficiency, like just waiting to get to camp. So
Well, and two, if you eat this huge meal on trail, for me, I just feel like it's sitting like this brick in my stomach that I just don't feel very good. So I'd rather eat just consistently. I have 3 larger meals, but I snack a ton in between. So I don't feel like I'm overly full. I'm just consistently like fueling the tank. Like I
Yep.
never want to run empty, because then when I run empty, that hangry, it's not pleasant.
well, part of the fun of backpacking is having an excuse to snack all day.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Rose is asking, a lot of backpacking meals rely on powdered milk or cheese to increase protein and flavor. I can't have dairy, so I was wondering if you have any strategies for getting enough protein and not getting a tasteless meal when you're going dairy free.
So that goes back to the cashew and the soy milk for the powders.
Yeah.
The other proteins, I love adding in chia seeds to things because they don't weigh anything. You can sneak in and they're like a thickener and they've got proteins. Okay, you'll hear me say this over and over again. Everything that eat is carbs, protein, and fat in every single bite, because that way you eat less food because you're getting it all at one time. So nuts I do a ton of. I do lots of beans too. So chickpeas have tons of protein in them. Lentils have tons in there. Textured vegetable protein's another one that's super lightweight. It takes on the flavor of whatever you're cooking. I'm trying to think of what are some other ones that the egg white powder I talked about. I don't like pea protein. I just don't like the taste of it, but I know a lot of people use it. It's too gritty. I've tried it. Similar kind of thing like nutritional yeast. It's really healthy and good for you, but it's just kind of, some people like the taste, some people don't. So those are some quick kind of off the top of my head ideas.
Yeah, those are all really solid. All right, another follow-up question. How do you carry enough calories to keep you fueled for a multi-day effort? For example, a 5-day, 100-mile fast pack, but keep the weight and bulk to a minimum. Real, like, high-level non-nutritional thing, we repackage a lot of our food. That can cut down immensely on bulk for fast packing in particular. So let's say you are eating any freeze-dried meal. If you were to repackage that into a Ziploc, you will save half, if not more, of the space. Yep. So just consider that for sure. If you are truly fast packing, you're like running and you've got a fast pack, 5 days is, you're probably going to need a resupply to be quite honest. If you're
30-liter pack is a little small for that much calories.
Yeah, you're going to have to be closer to a 40-liter pack in our experience to be able to do 5 days.
Unless you do nothing but meal replacement shakes. And they would just be powder stacked on top stacked on top of another for 5 days. I wouldn't want to do it, but
right. Yeah, for sure. But I think basic principles in general too.
Yeah.
The more fats you eat, like their higher caloric density, so, but obviously that can create GI issues or stomach issues, and your body's going to already be burning its own fat. So you start to just stack some issues there, but hopefully that helps. I think if you're truly doing a fast pack where you're running with a 30-liter fast pack, you're probably going to need to consider a resupply or else jump to a bigger pack, even with repackaging foods.
Because if you go super calorically dense, you're going to have so much fat in your gut, and if you're moving that fast, like I wouldn't feel very good, to be honest. So
Yep. Well, so one thing, Aaron, that we've kind of done is we will do shakedown trips to figure out how many calories we burn. We'll usually track it on the Garmin or Coros watch, and then we'll figure out how many calories we're burning, and then we'll try to replace most of those calories on a big day, like what he's describing. But we pretty much know we can't eat as many calories as we're going to burn on a really aggressive effort. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a question to come, so we can jump into it now.
Well, as long as you're not continually getting in a deficit, that if you have your big days you can eat, then you have a deficit one day, then you have a big day you can eat in a deficit. As long as you're not continually in a deficit, you're just keep farther and farther behind. You're not going to recover. You're going to get hangry. You're just not going to feel good. But I try to do my best to get as close. I eat 6,000 calories a day when I through hike. It's just,
You're the healthiest through hiker I've ever heard of, by far.
That's insane.
Oh and like I was just mentioning, the meal replacement shakes, that's how I do it, because I get so tired of chewing, and I'm an ultralight back. I like to go all day. I don't like stopping. So I carry them a pouch in all my backpacks have hip belt pockets. So I'll just have the powder there, draw some water in it, drink out of the bag and keep on moving. So I'll do at least 800 to 1,000 calories just in shakes in a day.
Yeah, that definitely helps.
Yeah, we're fans of that. I've used that quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, for a while there, I was trying to eat 4,000 to 5,000 calories on trail, and I just couldn't do it that effectively. Or like maybe one day I could, and the next day I wouldn't. Like my gut wouldn't be up to it. So I ended up eating probably my average is between 35 and 4,000 calories.
I would feel terrible. I wouldn't be pleasant to be around.
Well, last year I did my whole 100-mile hike. I forgot all of my lunches in my cooler in my car and didn't realize it till I was 10 miles into the hike. And so I pushed on, and I actually did totally fine, but I had to take everything that I had for food and divide it into hour-long segments, and I just dripped it essentially throughout the whole day, and I did okay. But I also have plenty of fat on me, and it was also for 4 days. So on a through hike,
a couple
it's a
days,
totally
you can usually
thing.
get by.
And that's kind of the realm that we're in with the 100-mile challenge. Is we've got people either doing like stacked trips where they're trying to do 5 or 6 overnighters to stack to 100,
right, or
they're doing one big fast effort, which is how we end up hiking most of the time because we're trying to squeeze a lot of miles into a short amount of time.
Yeah, this year will be different for us though, because we got to do
140,
about 24 miles a day for 6 straight days. So it'll be a little bit longer, a little bit harder on the guts and
whose plan was
so
this?
It's
still 6 days and not 6 months. So
yeah.
If you lose a few pounds, you can put it back on and you're not going to be emaciated.
Yeah. We put it back on before we even get back home with like 3 stops at Dairy Queens. And
we are a little more hangry by the last day. All of us are moving faster and looking for the next pizza or barbecue joint.
Yeah, we try to ban talk of restaurant food. Or just talk like by the time we get to the end. Otherwise, we all get a little more angry. All right, last question from Rose. What is your favorite trail food? Like kind of luxury or dessert? So it's like some of your kind of treats on trail.
I just uploaded my brand new favorite today is German chocolate cake. I figured out how to bake a cake in a freezer bag. So essentially you steam it and it like puffs up into a cake. And then I figured out how to make like the German chocolate frosting in a separate bag, and you dump the frosting on. It is so amazing. 600 calories. I had to throw it away because I'm not liking it. It was really hard to turn it away. But that's my brand new favorite. I just uploaded it today for our membership site.
Well, that's my favorite part of your website is the desserts recipes, because you've got a lot of creative ones there.
Yeah. Tyler made some for us off of your website that was like brownie batter or something like that.
Oh, that one's good. Yeah.
Really good. So, I mean, for my side, what I wrote down here was I really enjoy drinking like hot chocolate at the end of the day. I find that enjoyable. But like the Philippines dried mangoes, they add some sugar to them.
Those are good. And they're softer.
Yeah. They're like a snack and a dessert at the same time. So I like those. Mm-hmm. Okay. Next question from Chris. How do you handle not wanting to eat at the end of the day? When I get tired, I don't want to eat and have to force down dinner. I even get nauseated, and when I try to eat after a long day. This means that I struggle with a growing calorie deficit as the trip goes on. What can I do differently to help with this?
2 options that I've heard most hikers say that work for them is either eat a little bit earlier when you're not as worn out and tired and ready for the day to be over, when you're still feeling good. So eat a little bit earlier and then keep going into camp. Sometimes will work for people. And if that's not an option, that you just need to keep on trucking to get to camp before it gets dark, that kind of thing, get your spot. I talk about my meal replacement shakes all the time. It's just an easy way. You ate 8 ounces of water, shake it up, a whole meal is down and done. So you have to drink water at the end of the day anyway to rehydrate. So that's the other reason why I really like them, is you're getting your electrolytes back, you're getting your carbs back, you're getting your protein, you're getting all of that in just 8-ounce serving. So, and we have 2 of those on our website if you want to check them out as trial runs. But those would be my 2 options, is either try to eat a little bit earlier to see when you're feeling better, or maybe try a shake just to kind of get it down. Because you don't want to miss it. Like you said, getting in a deficit, you're just going to be in this vicious cycle and not feeling good.
Yeah, I think what I would add to that is just the idea of like what you said, being flexible. So I also notice that I don't feel as hungry if I have a big effort going on. So let's say I know I have a big climb during the day. I'm probably not going to be like super hungry at the top of that climb because of this effort or exposure. And so, yeah, being willing to shift around your bigger meal throughout the day, and maybe even not like maybe you're like you taking it at lunch, but like you could even shift it around from there. I think that will also be helpful to just consider that. So
Yeah, so we've had quite a few follow-up questions on YouTube about the shakes. So definitely go to backcountryfoodie.com and you can try out the homemade shakes. That way you know every single thing that's in it and you know that it's proven by Aaron. That's really helpful and awesome. There are some that you can buy, like we sell Scratch Labs products and we use their super high carb, right? Like that one is a carb replacement. It's not a full meal replacement, so it's missing some of the nutrients that would be in the homemade ones.
it's just carbs and sugars.
But
Rec Pack makes something. They mix. I've never tried those, but
yeah,
I'm not a fan because they're huge. They're like a 24. They're enormous. So that's the
Yeah.
only reason why I like mine better because they're smaller.
we do sell the Rec Pack ones, and we use them in a pinch. We don't usually plan on them being like the meal of the day. It's more like we throw it in the pack so that if we find ourselves in a crunch, then we have something that we can put water in really fast and recharge quickly.
Yeah.
With.
Yeah, I do that as I have one of my shakes as like a part of my first aid kit. So if I do get into a situation like that I, snow, it's taking me longer to get there, or that I'm bushwhacking more and it's going to take me longer to get there, then I pull that out, and they're shelf stable for well over a year. So I just leave it as a part of my first aid kit.
Yeah, that's good.
You're talking me into checking out your shakes for sure.
And they're just real food. There's nothing special about them.
Yeah, like I just did a Grand Canyon R3 attempt, and I packed 6,500 calories, and over 2,000 of them were liquid calories. And they just go down the best when you're active, and like it was really hot, so you start to not get hungry when it's just hot, you're exerting. And so liquid calories are just a huge easy button per se. Yep. So I'm loving it.
Like I said, when you have to drink water, you might as well make it double duty.
Yeah, I'm going to simplify this second question just in the sake of time. Biggest nutritional deficiencies that long hikers develop.
Some of the things that what I talked about was the B vitamins, the vitamin C, vitamin A, iron, are kind of all the ones just because of the way the food is processed. And if you tend to be a long distance through hiker, buying trails at gas stations and dollar trees, those kind of things, it's just more highly processed foods that have less vitamins in them. So if you freeze dried ingredients retain their vitamins. So if you're able to use freeze dried over dehydrated, then you're going to get those vitamins. But it's more expensive. They're bulkier. There's all these things. So I like just using multivitamin. Just take all that pressure off of me, and I enjoy my food just because it tastes good. I use food for macros and vitamins for vitamins.
I like that.
Yeah.
Karen S. is asking, what are good quick carbs other than pastas and tortillas?
And with that, my follow-up question is, are you wanting like base, like meal kinds of things versus snacky kind of things? Like, are you wanting to replace like pasta and tortilla for dinner?
I would consider those bigger meal versus snack. So if you had something
like couscous is really easy to do. I don't like using instant rice because it doesn't have the nutritional value in it that I like to use for my recipes. Again, going back to the quinoa, the bean pasta. I know you don't want pasta, but I really love chickpea pasta. It tastes really good. Just dehydrated chickpeas too make really good. Cold soak salads are really good. I'm trying to think. I don't do tortillas either myself because they're heavy and they don't provide the nutrition that I want. So I tend to do pita chips instead when I do tortillas. So I love hummus. Just add water hummus, and pita chips is kind of one of my go-tos. It's infinitely lighter weight than taking tortillas. So that's what's coming to my mind right now.
Just like smashing all of the food I eat. So thanks a lot. I usually have a tortilla most days. Stuart,
I'm a graham weenie. Like if it weighs too much, then I pick out something else.
Right. Stuart is asking, what are a couple good things to eat the day before a big hike, or what should I avoid?
So day before, I know really big athletes like to have big carb dinners the night before, but I really like to just continue eating your regular diet, just have a really solid day before. But most importantly, I think it's to really have a good breakfast. because if you wake up in the morning already depleted, what I've been known to do is, you got to jump in the car at 5 o'clock in the morning to get to the trailhead to, get a parking spot. When I lived in Seattle, that's what you had to do to get there to even get a parking spot. So if you don't eat a solid breakfast, you get there, you park, you start hiking, you haven't eaten breakfast, you already start off as a deficit because you've already metabolized everything you had for dinner the night before. So I almost think it's more important to eat your regular daily life the night before for backpacking purposes and have a really solid breakfast before you hit the trail. Even if it's just eating a bar, just something to get in you to get you going, and then eat something again once you get on that trail.
Yeah, I would actually say from kind of my experience in ultra running that it's more important that you actually start taking in, and you can give your 2 cents on this too, Aaron, but taking sodium, or like if you're taking salt pills or electrolytes, you can train your gut to handle that, or at least start to train it before you get to the trail. Because if you show up to the trail and then you start taking copious amounts of electrolytes, you will wreck your gut. And
I blow up.
Yeah. So I started to use like Relight capsules. You can also find them on our site, but so I'll just start popping a couple capsules like days or even up to a week before. And that I find helps my gut not show up and just feel like, holy cow, I just took in so much salt and electrolytes on day one. And I was not ready for that, because that turns into a messy ending. So.
Yeah, well, similar thing somebody asked about fat. I don't know if we won't get down to that. A similar kind of thing. If your gut's not used to eating a lot of fat, you're going to have a similar kind of problem.
Yeah.
So the key word is training your gut is very important.
Well, yeah, even just on your practice hikes, like for everyone who's doing the training right now, you need to practice eating while you hike. If you're not used to doing that, there's no way you're going to get the calories in that you need to on the big days if you're not practicing eating while you're hiking.
That will also really help you realize what you don't want to eat while hiking and help you pack the right food. So Good tip. Also from Stuart, if you are on a low salt diet and are supposed to avoid foods with high sodium, high in potassium, how do I balance that with proper hydration and electrolytes while backpacking, since salt and potassium are two of the keys needed for exertion and sweating?
And this is a good question that this kind of crosses the line of what I call medical nutrition therapy as a dietitian, that I'm not supposed to give like this kind of, because I could really mess you up if I provide the wrong recommendations, not knowing your medical history. So I would go back to your medical provider and see like how low is low salt when you're hiking. Can you actually increase your salt while you're hiking because you are sweating? You're not in your steady state at home where you're not depleting your salt. So if they approve you to have more salt, then it may be less of an issue. I don't know if they'll have you do a sweat test or whatever, just to figure out what your salt rate is. Then maybe it'll be less. I know potassium, if you've got kidney problems or that kind of thing, that you can't get around that. You usually have to really stick to that, but maybe the salt will be less of an issue if your provider says it's okay.
Yeah. Okay, this one, we kind of already talked about this, Scott, saying what's a good goal for calories on trail for a 20-mile day? If you're Aaron, you eat 6,000 plus. For a lot of us, like our team, I find that like 3,500 or more is like, that's kind of like the base level. Breaking 3,000 is, some of the guys will go that low, but as much as you can eat over that, I think is probably the better way to look at it.
But the goal should be to track what you burn on a shakedown trip and then try to meet that on your big trip.
Or use our hiking calorie calculator.
Yeah.
There you go.
We have a calorie calculator that has, I think, 14 different variables, because that's a really difficult question to answer, because what I hike at my pace and my backpack weight is very different from like what you guys do when you're fast packing going 24 miles. So my calorie needs are very different. A winter hike's very different from a summer hike. Something at altitude is different from that. If you're doing like steep climbs all day, it's very different. So we actually spent an entire year building out this calculator. It's that complicated. But it should give you a pretty good idea. I would use that as a baseline to get an idea, and then track, like you said, test it out when you're doing your hikes and keep a record of, and compare that to your watch to see like how close they are, then make decisions. It's all about training, testing and training.
Yeah. And again, that'll be over on Aaron's site, Backcountry Foodie.
Yeah.
Really quick, you talked about this the last time you were on. I'm just remembering. How does going to altitude affect calorie burn?
It can increase your metabolism just without doing any activity by 30%.
Wow.
So, and that's where the calculator is kind of tricky, is that if you put high altitude, it thinks your entire trip's at high altitude. So be careful if you're going up and down and hitting altitude, then going back down, then going back up, then be careful with that. But if you're staying at altitude, then for the first, I want to say like a week or so, and then your metabolism starts to kind of settle in, then it's like still a 10 to 15% increase over your baseline metabolism. So we have it set to where it's about a 25 to 30% increase over your regular.
Yeah, that's wild for sure.
Just to stand there, I was like, I should go live at 12,000 feet for a while.
Yeah.
lose a few pounds.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to skip over this one. We kind of already answered that. I like the boil in a bag meals to reserve my pot only for essentially heating up water, for cleanup and smell issues. Do you have any recommendations for DIY boil in a bag meals from grocery store items that wouldn't require prepping ahead of time or a dehydrator?
That's my favorite part of Erin's website.
That's what I specialize in.
Yeah.
It's all DIY. Go to the grocery, pull it off the shelf, and put it in a bag.
Let's
You
just
can
take
even filter by convenience store, right? Like
It's
you
grocery friendly.
Yeah. And then whatever recipes you choose off of backcountryfoodie.com, you hit the go shopping button or whatever it says.
Shopping
and
list.
It gives you the whole shopping list, and it simplifies the entire process so well.
The shopping list itself is like worth every bit of the membership. Like,
So really quick, this is probably just a good time to explain your services, Erin, if you wanted to just kind of give an overview of how would they get access to something like that on your website.
okay, so go to backcountryfoodie.com. We have 3 different tiers. We have just a recipes membership. So if you're just interested in kind of getting the recipes that I'm talking about, that I've trail tested, they're all nutrition designed and specified for hikers. That's our recipe membership. Then what Tyler's talking about is our meal planner, it's all the recipes. And right now I think we're up to 265 in there, and I add new ones every single month. So it's always growing. So the meal planner is just kind of a really drag and drop. It does, if you really want to get nerdy, it has a nutrition profile of how many calories, how much it weighs, how much water you need to pack. It has sodium. I just added saturated fat and cholesterol because we have a lot of people on heart healthy diets. So it does all that math for you. And then, like you said, you just click on a little shopping cart and it literally spits out the shopping list of, 5 bars of this, 4 bars of that, 4 packets of oatmeal, 1 cup of milk, that kind of thing. It spits it all out. So that's our meal planner. And then the next level is our meal planner plus. And the only difference in that is that it has my master classes. So if you really want to take a deep dive, essentially everything I know, I've put into 6 different classes. So that's kind of what the next level is. And then I offer nutrition coaching. If you're just still struggling or you just want me to do all the work for you, I do all the writing of the meal plans and that kind of stuff too. Or just a one-on-one hour, let's just troubleshoot what's going on. And then we can do that too.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a super, super awesome resource. So go check it out for sure. Well worth the investment. So
We have a couple of follow-up questions here. Someone wants your definition of high altitude, Erin, for the calorie increase.
So for the calculation that we used in the calculator is 12,000 feet. So that doesn't mean that you may notice it at 8,000. If you're somebody that lives at lower altitude, then you may notice the effects at 8 to 10,000. But for nutrition wise, 12,000 is the number that we're using.
yeah, and I mean, I find this interesting, but in terms of like altitude sickness from a medical perspective, you can start to become at risk for altitude sickness as low as 8,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely a range
Right.
of all sorts of what is high altitude.
Right.
Okay, we're going to keep moving on here. I may start to skip a few questions. If I skip over your question, you may just need to watch back because I feel like we've already answered that, I guess. Biggest weight savings tip for carrying food on a multi-day trip. That was written in by Sarah.
So similar kind of thing to what you already talked about is repackaging things. It's just, that's quick and easy to do. Checking the caloric density of foods. Like I said, if you read food labels and if it has carbs, protein, and fat all in the same label, check the calories per ounce. It's going to save you some weight savings. I tend to, well, not even just weight savings, but space savings is usually really important too. Is if you're trying to carry a smaller backpack, is if you need to squeeze in like 7 days worth of food into one bear can, then I don't take ramen because it takes up a bunch of space. I wouldn't take jerky because it takes up, or like the nut bars that don't bend. So I tend to change what I eat on those days just so I can squish it all in the bear can. Because again, I'm not very nice to be around when I'm hungry. So if I have to eat some, really fine powdered things for a few days, I'm better off doing that. But those are kind of my go-tos, is doing those things.
And meal replacement shakes.
Yeah.
And meal replacement shakes. I mean, those are great because they line the can.
Yeah. Wendy G, she's asking, would love to hear your top 5 nutritious, calorie-dense, lightweight foods for backpacking on long treks. Now, we've already kind of covered meal replacement shakes. We just covered that other one. I feel like maybe we've already hit this one, but is there anything that comes to mind really quick if you just have like one tip for that?
Well, nuts are another powerhouse. So they've got all that in it. They've got vitamins in it. They've got all that nutrition in it that you can just sprinkle those into anything. So you can add them in breakfast. You can have them for snacks. You can have them in your dinner. You can have them in dessert. So that's just kind of another way to sprinkle things in without eating a large volume of extra food.
Yep. Sorry, I'm just picking through some of these. Are there certain brands of trail bars? This is Scott. Are there certain brands of trail bars or freeze-dried backpacking food that you recommend or avoid?
Well, the freeze-dried backpacking food is easy. I don't touch it. I haven't eaten a freeze-dried meal in almost 9 years now.
Wow.
I just don't like what they taste like now that I've learned how to make my own. The other thing that really is important to me is that my food is similar to what I eat at home versus being completely different on trails. So that's what our recipes are based on too. It's like, what are some of my favorite things I like to eat at home? Then I just find a backpacking way to do it. So I like DIY just because I think it tastes better. Bars, again, I think that's a personal preference. Some people like Cliff bars. I can't stand them. I've eaten so many of them. They're just too dry. Some people like protein bars. So I actually don't eat many bars anymore because I've eaten so many that I prefer trail mix actually, because in that way I can kind of pick and choose out of it what I want. Energy bites are another one of my go-tos now because they're more like a quick pop. You just pop them in. You've got 200 calories in one bite. That kind of thing. So I don't have any real trail bar brands that I love in particular. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And for us, we always try to sell all of our favorite stuff in the membership on our website. So if you're looking for the list of the foods that are proven essentials for us, it's all on outdoorvitals.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would add,
preference.
Yeah, I would add to that just variety. I'm just a huge fan of a massive variety. I don't really want 2 of the same bar in a single day. So, all right, this is a really good question from Isa. I'm currently in an ultra running cell, and I'm very focused on certain aspects of fueling for my race. My question is, should my hydration plan be different for an upcoming 4-day, 100-mile backpacking trip as it would be compared to a 32-hour effort? I recently did a 100K effort and found that I nailed my hydration with 800 milligrams of sodium per liter per hour, with a liter of unaltered water every other hour overnight. So is it okay to keep this high of a sodium level for such a prolonged time, or should I cut it back? And then they add in there, my OV 100-mile trip will be really hot, 100 degrees. So my 2 cents on this would be, from what I understand medically, this concentration of sodium in your sweat remains the same, but your sweat rate changes, to my understanding. I also, from what I understand, your body will store sodium. Like, it can store a lot of sodium. So when you're running, your body sometimes wants to see like total replacement or near total replacement to avoid cramping, because you're pushing your muscles so hard. So from my experience, I have to have 1,000 milligrams of sodium per liter when I'm running during my ultra marathons. However, when I'm hiking, I dial it significantly back personally to where, like on my Wind River hike, I did 400 milligrams of sodium per liter of fluid plus my food. So that might have put me somewhere in the 600, maybe 700 milligrams of sodium range. And I had no issues, felt really good the entire time. And I think that's because your body does store sodium. And if you're giving it more time, it can pull that without maybe inducing cramping or something like that. That's my 2 cents. Let's hear it from a professional now.
Well, I agree 100%. I was going to say, you could probably answer this really well with your experience as a trail runner. Yeah, similar thing. Just trail running, you're consistently sweating, and probably your efforts have 32-hour efforts very different from hiking for 10 to 12 hours kind of thing. And I don't even get as sophisticated as putting sodium in my water because I prefer to eat. So my sodium is just all throughout the day, and I'm very salt sensitive. So kind of like we were saying, like if I have too much salt, I bloat really bad. I can't use LMNT because I just bloat so bad. I have to dilute it down like a quarter of it to a whole liter of water. Otherwise I get really, really puffy. So I think it's very personal. So you're salt sensitive, how your sweat rate is, I think it's another one of those training, get out there and try it and see what you feel the best. If you feel really bloated, then dial it back. If you're, getting crampy, then add more, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I even saw in a medical journal that the claim was that we actually hold enough sodium in our bodies, like we store it, so much so that you could run a 100-mile race without ever putting any more sodium in your body.
Oh.
Like that's how much is stored, and it's possible, but the practicality of it is like it's not really there. Like don't go do that.
Well,
But
that's where that's where the
Especially on
cracks
100.
come from, right? Your body is telling you to replace it.
yes. And so
Whether
that's the
you
whole
have it
thing
or
is like
not.
when you're running and you're putting out that much effort, your body wants to see it replaced in terms of like knowing it's not in a crisis mode. But when you're hiking, you're not going so hard and so physical. Just know that unless you're going like back-to-back weeks like that, you could probably dial back your sodium. So, okay, here's one. If I pack olive oil or coconut oil to supplement freeze-dried meals, I'm guessing like in terms of calories, how much can I add before approaching dumping syndrome?
This is kind of what I was talking about before. Train your gut. I learned this on the first 3 days of my PCT hike because I was so excited that like I'm doing this ultralight thing. I'm going to eat calorically dense food, and I normally ate a relatively low-fat diet at home and then loaded up on the fat the first 3 days. That, yeah, you could say dumping syndrome was a problem. So I would definitely, if you're not used to eating a lot of fat at home, either prep yourself by eating more and more fat before, if you're going on a really long hike kind of thing, prep your gut before you go, or dial up the fat throughout your hike kind of thing. I wouldn't go from low fat like I did to very high fat because I think it's going to be personal dependent, like what your body's used to metabolizing. That I don't think there's 2 tablespoons per serving is the maximum amount, that kind of thing. I can't really give a specific, but definitely it's all about training,
Yeah, I like that, especially like raising it up throughout your trail too. That's a smart way to do it. And it kind of goes with this question from John. Whenever I go out for a couple of days on trail, I inevitably, that first night, I'm not hungry and I do not eat dinner. Does this happen to many hikers? And what can I do about it?
Yeah, I think we kind of talked about that before. Similar kind of thing. I think it's very common because, too, if we're kind of a typical person working a 9-to-5 job all week long, sitting around at a desk, and then you're exerting yourself, then your body's kind of like, whoa, like what's going on? You've stressed your body, so you may not necessarily be hungry. But at the same time, that's when your body needs it the most because you need to recover, you need to replenish your glycogen, your fluid, those kind of things. So, like we kind of talked about, being flexible. Try to eat a little bit earlier when you're feeling better, if you know you're going to not want to eat later, drink something, or even, we didn't talk about this, even just a handful of trail mix, something, if you can just get something in, even if it's just a nut butter pack, something in, especially with protein in it, like we talked about, to help with recovery, then something's better than nothing.
Okay. Down to our last 2 questions here. One's from Jim. I'm going to simplify it and just say, like, what's your favorite breakfast on trail?
Let's see. Was he saying cold soaking or anything? He didn't necessarily mention.
He's
Okay.
just saying, like, I don't usually eat breakfast, but I want to
Okay.
have a calorie-dense breakfast. What would it be?
So I'm kind of wondering what you don't normally eat breakfast at home, or
Yeah.
okay, that kind of thing. Okay. So if you don't normally eat breakfast at home, I would still kind of what I was talking about before. You want to start out with something there today, whether you're drinking something, even if it's your coffee drinker. Maybe you don't eat breakfast, but you have coffee. Maybe put some milk powder, some sugar in there, something in there to give your coffee some nutrition, and then have a bar once you're up and going. So at least you've got something in your gut. Again, the shakes is one. Or if you are, one thing that a lot of people don't realize is if you're a cold cereal eater at home, pack that for backpacking. Just take your favorite cold cereal and milk powder, add water, stir it up, and it's just like your regular morning breakfast. Similar kind of thing. I'm a yogurt parfait person. I love yogurt and berries in the morning at home. So that's what I have for breakfast when I'm hiking is you can get the Gerber baby yogurt melts in the baby section, and you just crush them up, add a little bit of water, and it's regular yogurt. And then I put in some freeze dried or dried fruit and some granola on top, and it's a yogurt parfait. So it's very similar to what I already do at home.
That sounds good.
Am I making you hungry?
I love yogurt for breakfast. So
That's what I eat normally. So like I said, I do it as a backpacking version, and it's very small. It's very calorically dense. I think there's like 600 calories in like a little half a cup of yogurt by the time I'm done with it.
Yeah, that's a home run tip right there. Love it. Last question, Dave W. I'm worried about electrolyte drink mixes. What are the signs you have taken too much or too little? What would be the best way to mitigate problems and not take any? Do you recommend electrolyte drink mixes of which ones? So, a couple of quick signs. If you take too much, you'll develop GI issues in the form of you'll lose your appetite. You'll start developing diarrhea. Things like that can be signs of taking too much salt. The flip side, things like cramping or headaches, but they're kind of like hydration. Like really like the signs of like dehydration are also can be somewhat linked to similar things. Really the point of like taking electrolytes, a big point of taking electrolytes is just helping you to absorb the fluid. I find that when I take electrolytes with my fluid, you can absorb more, or you can just drink more fluid. So those would be like high level signs. If you go back and watch some of our documentaries on my ultras, you can get a really good masterclass on what not to do. And you'll see some crazy things that happened to me in terms of all sorts of things. So you can go learn what nots to do there on some of those first ultras. But what do you want to add to that?
Well, and kind of going the opposite direction, the low salt, I was just thinking about the low salt portion we talked about earlier. I actually was a race marshal at a marathon one year, and somebody died because all he drank was water the entire time. Wow. So that's I just thought of that story. So for the low salt person, I would definitely talk to your provider to see like what is my actual salt level that I could do safely. So similar kind of thing if you don't take enough electrolytes and you're just drinking out water all the time. But like I was saying, I'm so sensitive to electrolyte mixes, I don't use a lot of them, but I prefer like salty nuts. I prefer plantain chips are kind of my go-to. They're salty, they're crunchy, they're fatty. That's it has potassium in it too. So that's kind of one of my electrolyte foods. Milk powder has a ton of salt in it, so I try to get in breakfast that way. So those kind of things is kind of how I get my salt throughout the day without feeling like I have to drink a really salty thing because I just don't tolerate it very well.
Yeah. Drinking around mealtime or with carbohydrates also is a good thing. Carbohydrates can help with absorption. And then the easiest button, like as far as recommendations, obviously we've talked about Scratch. They have like a very dialed in approach. You could definitely take those. But as far as like maybe a little bit less bulky option or a little bit easier to adjust on the trail, the Relight capsules that I was talking about is basically a salt capsule. Just super easy because you can just look on the package. You can see how much salt is in each pill. So each pill has like 200 milligrams of salt and potassium and chloride and like the whole gamut of what you need there. And you can just dial it in for exactly what you need. So that's been my new favorite for on trail is I can just take a baggie of those essentially and just modulate what I feel like I need on trail. So.
And it's for sure something to have in your emergency kit.
Yeah, for you or someone else because sometimes it's not you that really develops the problem. You're on
That
calls
too.
like this, and so you already know what you're doing.
That too. Well, I'm kind of monitoring like how crusty do you get too. That's going to kind of give you how much salt you're actually losing at the end of the day.
Yep. Okay. That's the last of our questions. So first off, everyone give it up for Aaron. You crushed it. It was super helpful to have a professional on here that thinks about this day in and day out. There's so many things that we don't think about because we don't have specific dietary restrictions, and you're an expert on that. So again, you can go check out her website. And there's going to be, especially if you want some much more unique options than what I'm going to ever recommend. I don't think about it ahead of time enough, and I hate that about myself. But I wish if you want to be better than me, go check out Aaron's website.
Well, and if you have a dietary restriction, I've probably got you covered. So
Yeah.
I've got, I think, 9 different dietary restrictions. Like Tyler was saying, you just click on a filter and it spits out whichever ones you're looking for. If you want a dairy-free, soy-free, cold soak, grocery-friendly, and then it, like, you click on all 4 of those and it'll give you the list of what it is. So it's really easy to find.
Yeah.
And then if there's nothing in there that you like, then I do a 30-day money-back guarantee because I want you to, I mean, I only want it to be useful for you. If it's not going to fit your needs, then I'm happy to give you your money back. So
That's awesome. Okay. We also promised a giveaway. Let's do that. I believe, how did we do this last time? We picked a number between one and how many people are on here?
63 we're on here just right now.
Okay. You want to just
Have everybody that is on the call comment something to make sure that they're all in there, and then we'll pick a random winner.
Everyone that's on the call, drop a comment really quick, and then we're going to pick a random number within the comments, if I'm understanding that correctly from our off-camera help here. So quickly drop a comment. We'll give you about 20, 30 seconds to do so.
how many liters is that pack? I'm kind of looking at them, eyeing it.
So this guy is our 60-liter Shadow Light. We have it in both 45 and 60-liter options. It's
Oh,
got
it doesn't look like a
zip.
60. Wow.
Yeah,
It's not packed very full, or this rolls up too, but
yeah, most people have it rolled up a little higher than that, but this has been one of our very most popular products, and we're excited to give one away. We also have a surprise for everyone who is on the call here. So
And I have to ask, how much does it weigh while you're waiting for people to comment?
it's just under 2 pounds.
pretty much right at 2 pounds, 1 pound, 15 and a half ounces.
Nice.
All right, Derek, are we ready?
Yep. Congrats to Scott Ramsey.
Scott Ramsey is the winner.
All right. Congrats, Scott. That is awesome. We will just have you email support@outdoorvitals.com. Let them know that you won the giveaway today, and let them know what variation of the Shadow Light you want, whether you want the 45 or the 60, and what your size is. And we are stocked out on a good amount of the Arctic color, especially in the regular torso realm. So check our website and see what's available before you email in.
And then last thing, if you did not win, Derek over here has created a code. If you type in new pack, no space, all caps, so NEWPACK, you'll get 10% off an order at Outdoor Vitals. That's live until Monday. So that will, if I remember right from what you explained, that will stack with discounts from the membership. So if you're a member, you'll unlock even more savings.
Essentially
And-
the same savings as our Black Friday sales. And all
Yeah, for real. It's a huge sale, actually, if you start stacking those. And if you sign up for the Live Ultrite membership right now, we will also send you a Altitude t-shirt, short sleeve or long sleeve. We've been doing a promo that we just kicked off a couple days ago, actually, for this one. So likely this will phase on and off. So it's a good time to join that membership as well. But yeah, so again, that's new pack, NEWPACK, all one word. And you can save 10% off. So, okay. Thank you so much for coming on again. Thank you, Aaron. I'm sure this will be, again, one of our most popular live streams. People love talking about food. It's a hot topic. It's a fun topic. And there's nothing worse than getting out on trail and not having an enjoyable food experience. So take advantage of Erin's offerings and expertise. While we may know gear, she knows food. So listen to her for food, and we'll stick in our realm, apparently. Okay, thank you so much. We'll go ahead and end it here. Again, make sure you jump over to the Facebook group and keep in touch with everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll see you guys on the next live stream.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Gotta love these awkward silences while it ends. Is it ended?
Now it's in.
Okay. Thanks so much.